If we look at the Earth's land surface, always humid, like Ireland, is about a third. Seasonally humid and then dry is about 2/3 of the world. So it's a small portion of the world that is like Ireland and humid almost every day. So we'll look at the life cycle of plants and animals in a humid environment first, over 1 year. We'll have volume on the left and time on the going across to the right. So we have a high volume of plant life. When do things die? What time of the year do they die? Well, they can die any month. Tree can die, squirrel can die, whatever. What about the things that ate vegetation? Well, mostly insects. Well, what about the large herbivores? Yes, there were some deer. Yes, there were some okapi and so on. What about the things that ate them? Yes, there were tigers. Yes, there were jaguars. Why weren't there packs of tigers? Because they don't eat insects. Why weren't there packs of jaguars? Because they don't eat insects. They didn't have enough prey. Okay, so what about the decay? Well, microorganism populations are high throughout the year. Decay is rapid, so life continues. So we look at those environments and we say, well, how did you disturb them? The answer is you didn't. For hundreds of years, they could be undisturbed, unless you got volcanic action or a hurricane or something. All right, so rest is natural. It's one of our tools we use, remember? And when we look at that, rest is natural, biological decay is rapid, and we see abandoned cities under vegetation. So no matter how badly we damaged the environment with our agriculture, when we had to abandon these cities, the environment recovered. Okay, let's look at the other parts of the world that are not like that, which is most of the world now that we're looking at. And we've got a seasonal rain period. It can be 50 inches, 80 inches, it can be 10 inches, 5 inches. But vegetation grows. Insects and microorganism populations grow up. But then what happens? The rain stops. The atmosphere dries off, the soil dries off, and now we may have 6, 8, 9 months before there's more rain. Well, what happens to the vegetation? Millions of tons of vegetation dies every single year, and did for billions of years. Okay, so it had to decay and recycle for there to be soil and for there to be life. Well, how did it decay? The microorganism populations also died off. And we never posed that question as scientists. Remember, we're always posing a question and then answering it, and we never asked this question of how did decay occur in 2/3 of the world's land? Because if decay doesn't occur, what takes over is oxidation. And that is a chemical process, and that is gradual with physical weathering. So we're now replacing rapid biological decay with chemical oxidation and physical weathering. That kills grasslands, that leads to deserts forming. So somehow this decay must have occurred. Well, we have to go back to Smuts's thinking of holes. What animals ran here? Very easy to name them. All the large herding herbivores came from these environments. Millions of animals. And the gut of the animal didn't dry off. That's where the moisture remained. And the animals couldn't digest the grass. They're doing it in a symbiotic relationship with microorganisms in the gut. Okay, so that's making sense. I can make sense of that. But then that means that rest is unnatural, because how could the land have rested? It couldn't. You were getting masses of animals coming over it with their hooves, trampling, dunging. How can the land rest? Well, obviously it couldn't. When we look at abandoned civilizations in these environments, we see the land continued to deteriorate. We find them under desert sand. Okay, well then let's try and sort out a few other things. It must have been a terrible world with all those animals because of all the overgrazing. So why wasn't the world overgrazed before humans rescued it by killing off all these animals? There's a good reason. These millions of herbivores had pack hunting predators. And how did they protect themselves from pack hunters? 20 lions in a pack, when most of the females haven't even got horns. And the males don't use their horns to defend females. They use them to fight each other. The answer is 2 strategies to deal with pack hunters. They dropped all their young quickly. Because if 1 million animals dropped all their young in a month, and 20% were eaten, 80% survived. If they dropped them every year, none would have survived. Every month, sorry. The other thing was large bunched herds. The larger the bunch, the safer they were, because the predator can't attack the bunch. You've all seen the wonderful television shows of lions or cheetahs or whatever trying to get the animals out of the herd in Serengeti and so on. Now, bunched animals dung and urinate in very high concentration, but no creatures like to feed on their own feces, including humans. So they had to move off. When could they come back? When the feces had weathered. So that automatically meant plants were exposed to animals for a short time, 2 or 3 days, and then not re-exposed to those until a recovery time. Well, file that in the back of your mind. How did the pack hunters work? They had to isolate an animal to kill it. And then many lions or cheetahs or whatever ate one animal. They didn't say, you protect it, we'll go and kill another. 20 lions would feed on one buffalo. And they controlled by their prey numbers as predators. So that type of predation, we can see how it worked. But then what happened? Suddenly, we got a new type of animal on the planet, sorry. We're an omnivorous scavenger that learned how to prey. If you think you're a predator, go and try and catch a deer and kill it with your teeth. You can't. We're not a predator. We're an omnivorous scavenger. And we learnt that with language, organization, fire, weapons, swamps, cliffs, we could hunt. And we found it easier to drive a whole herd over a cliff than to get one animal out of the herd. And there are killing sites found where very few animals are eaten. New Zealand, I believe, one site, 90,000 moas killed and very few eaten. There are killing sites in the Americas with hundreds of buffalo killed, very few eaten. We didn't have refrigeration and so on. We were omnivorous. It didn't matter if we killed them out. We could turn to another food. Now, one of the things you'll hear is that climate change is causing desertification, that et cetera, et cetera. No, it's our management that is causing desertification, and desertification is a major component of climate change. So let me show you some evidence on our own land in Africa. Now, up on the left there, you have a bare area of soil. That has been bare for over 30 years. The road to my home used to be through here. This is a ranch I used to own, and my wife and I donated it for the community, and we run it as a learning site now for the benefit of Africa. Now, that land had been bare like that and eroding for 30 years, regardless of season. So we then subjected it to very high animal impact. We used livestock, and we put them on there for 7 nights in a lion-proof enclosure, because we run the animals in a predator-friendly way. So for 7 nights, there was extreme trampling, etc. During the day, the animals were grazed on a plan, which they grazed to, and we then had a severe rainfall failure or drought. But look what happened to the land. It started to improve. Then we got a good rainy season, and the land improved further. Then we got another drought, no further treatment, and the land improved even more. Now, do droughts cause land degradation, or does our ignorance? Frankly, it's our ignorance and our fear of animals. Here's another site, bare for over 30 years. You can see, if you look closely there, over 25 centimeters of soil loss eroding from that ground. Now, in the background, you'll see some mats. Those are so that lions can't see into the herd and don't attack the cattle at night. And we will then crowd the cattle onto this again at night. So we did that. And there it is. You can see the mats in the background. You can see the same trees. You see now it's heavily trampled by animals like used to happen in nature. Okay, and then there it is now. It's hard to believe that's the same piece of ground. So you can look at the branch in the tree there and see it's an identical piece of ground. It's amazing how if you just mimic nature, it comes right. We were ignorant about how nature functioned, with our fear of animals. And here's a bear area nearby that we leave bear because the giraffe and the zebra and the guinea fowl and everything need to dust themselves for lice, etc. And this shook the Kruger Park people when they were up looking, because a lot of people are visiting the site now and seeing what we're doing, and they couldn't believe that we're now preserving bare ground. Remnant sites we're preserving for the animals, because they do need them for the social behavior. Just to show it's not just in Zimbabwe, there's a fixed point photograph, prior state up on the left, and then the exact same picture after a few years of mimicking nature with planned grazing, much higher animal numbers.